In this episode of Popcorn and Compliance, the MCU series, Megan Dougherty and I take a look at the Black Widow. I know you will enjoy it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first live show of the MCU universe on Popcorn and Compliance, where myself, Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, and Megan Dougherty, the co-founder of One Stone Creative, are back with a new challenge, and which is we're going to review the entire MCU on Popcorn and Compliance. Why? Well, because number one, it's there, but number two, and even more, well, actually three reasons, I think, Megan. Two, we're both MCU uber geeks, but three, it gives us a chance to have a long and fun conversation that I hope you will join in with us. So we're reviewing the films in chronological order, not by release date. And today it is Black Widow. So welcome. I'm your co-host, Tom Fox, founder of the Compliance Podcast Network and the voice of compliance.
And I'm Megan Dougherty, co-founder of One Stone Creative, and I'm pretty excited to talk about Black Widow. Although I think, Tom, maybe this is not one of your favorite in the MCU universe.
Upon rewatching, it became less bad. I thought it was terrible the first time I saw it, but rewatching it became less bad. I'm not sure it's ever going to rise to good, but it's certainly, and I think part of the reason I thought it was so bad to start with is what I saw as the degradation and frankly violation of women and young girls really disturbed me. And that's a big part of this, and it's very open and frank about it. And in rewatching it, what I was able to focus those parts on is how it changed the character of the girls who became women who'd been subjected to that treatment. So that really took away one of the concerns I had, or one of the reasons I really disliked it. Also, on the second viewing, I saw much more of the relationship of the two sisters. And I have a sister, so I have some appreciation of what sisters are like, particularly irritating little sisters. And so I saw a bit more of that. I'm still not sure about really Natasha's whole backstory, because what I can't really get my head around, and maybe you'll have some insights, Megan, is how she went from the Black Widow to an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. And we know it was around Bucharest. We know the attack now, which she had to do to demonstrate she was ready to defect. The consequences of the attack resonated many years later and indeed were horrible. But I'm just not clear how she became a good guy. She did, but so those are some of my initial thoughts. How about you?
Well, I think one of I agree with you. It's not one of the top Marvel movies. I think I liked it on my first watching. I'd been waiting for the Black Widow movie for quite a long time. And mostly it was fun. It was a fun movie, kind of in the same way almost that Ant-Man was, or Guardians, where it's a little less big bad superhero. There's so much comedy in between. The relationship with the family was really, really good. And examining that backstory of Black Widow and Black Widow program, I thought was really interesting. And it was nice to kind of get that filled in information about how Black Widow came to be. And I think to your point about how she became a good guy, she graduated the Red Room before the real mind control, before the drug-assisted mind control happened. And she was merely brainwashed as a child. So was able to maybe make evaluations and make judgments and start to realize, like, oh, wait, maybe, being a paid on-demand assassin for secret communists is a terrible thing. And what I liked a lot about this was it was a really small thing, but finally understanding the Budapest reference that she and Clint, or Hawkeye, were always talking about, I thought was a lot of fun. And just I too have a little sister, and watching them interact was marvelous. And how awesome is Florence Pugh as Yelena? She's hilarious. So yeah, I enjoyed the movie on first watching. I enjoyed it more on second watching. And I think the whole family dynamic, not just between the sisters, but between the Red Guardian and Iron Maiden as well, was pretty fantastic.
Well, you definitely give it higher marks than I do. The A couple of other more insights I got as I watched it the second time. The first was, and this may have been as a dramatic an influence on the daughters as anything, was the entire family in the United States. It was everything was false about,
Hmm.
they were a plant. They were not Russian, Soviet agents, because this was when the Soviet Union
Yeah.
still existed. And that was probably the greatest fear of we Americans, that they would it wasn't ISIS and it wasn't the
Hmm.
hordes from Mexico. It was the Soviets,
Yeah.
and they were living among us. And when the revolution came, they would rise up and cut all our throats. And turns out that was true, at least in this movie. But to be taken from your mother, or as we now know, sold by your mother, and then put in this family, and then put in the Black Widow program, even if it was an early version of it, um, that would seriously mess you up.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah, I think
I
that mess you up
think,
real good.
yeah, so kind of lots of issues there going on. The father,
That's
he
so
was
funny.
he does the word doofus translate to Canadian? It
It
was
does.
just
I think it does. I think it's appropriate.
he was just an idiot. Um, at
I think
least,
I'd say he was fully taken in by the propaganda of his upbringing.
well, I was going to say he was fully taken in by the propaganda of himself.
Fair point. Fair point.
But he was the Soviet equivalent to Captain America.
Hmm.
And at that point he was, and you see the opening scene where he does some fairly dramatic um, physical activities, and then he shoots basically a 22 rifle, and takes out an entire SHIELD team um, while on the wing of a plane. Very impressive shooting as someone who has shot a 22 from the prone position at a stationary target. Um, all of that was pretty cool. Um, and I guess, let's see, we're 7 minutes into this recording, and we have not yet talked about the pose. And that probably that will be the one thing this movie will be remembered for, and would say rightly so. And I mean, the whole setup with little sister saying, "Oh, you do this," and then the throwing of the hair, and then her doing it. Uh,
Oh, when she
you
did it
know,
later, she tried it out and she's like, "Oh, that was disgusting."
yeah, yeah. I, I just love the pose, and that was very cool.
Well, and
And
I
then,
think,
of
and just
course,
about that though, that brought up a really interesting point that I don't think of it very much, is that Natasha, Black Widow, as well as the other Avengers, are celebrities as well as being superheroes. They have fans and they have an image, which is something Yelena totally wouldn't have experienced as a secret assassin. So I thought it was kind of an interesting way to shine a little light on the fact that they're public figures in a really serious way in the universe.
right, right. Um, could we say a few words about the Taskmaster? Uh, because I found her a much more sympathetic character on the second viewing.
Hmm.
And the Taskmaster was Dreykov's daughter, who was uh, um, believed to have been killed when Natasha tried to kill Dreykov. It turned out she was horribly injured,
Hmm.
only horribly injured, I should say. But they basically made her a cyborg, and made her a killing machine, and with some very super powers.
It's really cool.
And it was very cool. And but at the end, she began to get her memories back, and that's a theme we see of a lot of cyborgs. I'm watching Halo right now on CBS, and it's the same theme.
Hmm.
Cyborg gets memories back, and why that intrigues me so much, Megan, is whenever I see the story of a robot who wants to become human, I think of Pinocchio. It's
Hmm.
the little puppet who wants to be a little boy. And I see the same theme literally from 700 years ago today.
Yeah.
But this is not that. This is the cyborg. This is the robot who wants to go back to the way they were. So it's a little bit of reverse, but it's a clear theme in sci-fi tropes. But I thought they played it off very well here. And then maybe before or before your next kind of series of comments, what did you think about the way they set up the Hawkeye series in this movie? Because this movie was made, I think, in 2015, but delayed
Mhm.
release until last year, and unfortunately after the Hawkeye series. No, right before the Hawkeye
Right before.
series,
Mhm.
and it was. Did you think that they tied that to the Hawkeye series enough, or because it was delayed so long, it really didn't work,
Yeah,
or we knew that information?
yeah, I haven't actually watched the Hawkeye series yet, so I'm not sure how the interrelations, because I know Yelena's in it, and I know they set it up at the end with Valentina, you know, giving Yelena the chance to kind of get revenge on Clint. I guess Yelena not knowing the whole backstory. But I mean, I think it sets it up as well as they set up a lot of tie-ins in the past with kind of the stingers at the end. I'm mostly just super excited to get more Florence Pugh. I am so excited to watch her again, so I think that's going to be a lot of fun. But thematically, I don't have a good idea of how that fits in yet. Ask me again after I've watched Hawkeye,
All
which
right.
I assume we'll be talking about here.
So what were some of the cookies you liked or struck you?
Uh, One of the ones, there were a couple that I really liked. One about the Taskmaster, is how she didn't just take like so the whole way the Taskmaster worked was watching videos and learning the fighting styles of the people she was going to be fighting, and she got Natasha's fighting styles as well. But she also must have been trained on other Avengers fights, because she took Cap's shield step catch move, and I think one of Bucky's knife drop catch moves. So she was like up to date on all of the Avengers fighting, which I thought was really really cool and fun to watch. And then a little bit about the Red Guardian, who I loved. He was just such a fun character, so sincere but incompetent, in this really delightful, relatable way. The Karl Marx knuckle tattoos. I'm gonna guess he never actually read Karl Marx, but just great. And on his other tattoos, I think I saw Natasha and Yelena on one arm, and then um, Mother, I made her name, I can't remember at the moment, on his chest. So I thought that was kind of nice. You know, he talks big and tough and about, the state, but no, he liked his family. He liked them a lot. And Florence or Yelena with the vest that she thought was so cool, with all the pockets, and then she knew Natasha really liked it too. Natasha's wearing that vest in Infinity War. She kept it. So
Right.
that my heart. Yeah, all in all, I thought it was a really fun movie, and just the sister relationship was fantastic. And I wish they'd gone a little more with the commentary. I don't think they really fully did Black Widow justice with the film. I think there could have been a second one, maybe like the in between the end of Black Widow that we saw and how she became blonde. There's a good 2 weeks in there that we don't have, so that could be another movie. So I'm hoping that happens. But yeah, generally, good movie, lots of fun. I really enjoyed the jokes.
I want the next Black Widow to be Bucharest.
Yes.
I want to see it. I want to hear it. I want to feel it, because Clint went there to kill her and he didn't.
Well,
And
he
that's
turned her. That's even more valuable.
right, right. And
And I think he did it
I
because
want
he's a
that
dad.
story.
He's a
Yeah.
dad. In his heart, he's a dad, and he cannot see a lost human without being like, "No, I'm going to dad you."
Um, Before I get to my Easter eggs, I want to talk about, for me, which was the most uncomfortable part, which was the hysterectomy that they
Mm.
performed on the Black Widows, and the forced hysterectomies. For those who, I haven't made it clear how uncomfortable this was. And is do you think that added to the story, took away from the story, was a necessary part of the story? Or I really just wanted to get, how did you feel when you heard that?
I mean, I knew it was part of the graduation from the Red Room, and um, taking on the mindset of an evil, assassin building bad guy. It's very sensible. You don't want your assassins to develop attachments that would prevent them from being on mission. And from everything I've heard about having children, you're quite fond of them, and they take up a lot of your attention. So, yeah, sensible. And I think from a perspective of what that might do to a person who would expect to have reproductive capabilities, yeah, it would help to humanize them. So from a bad guy perspective, great move. From an individual human to whom this happened perspective, I think that could go a lot of different directions. I think some people it would affect really, really seriously. Some people would probably care a lot less. I think individual experience of that, the involuntary is the big problem, I think, more than the hysterectomy. I like when they addressed it in the movie, and when the Red Guardian makes this awful joke, so your time of your month, no, this is what happens when you get an involuntary hysterectomy with the organs and the cutting up and the removing. That was so good. She was about to talk about fallopian tubes and he interrupted her. So I think it really varies on how the individual felt about their own ability and desire to reproduce. But having been trained up from being a very young child, would there even be an expectation that you would get that kind of normal part of human existence? I don't know. So I didn't yes, bad, objectively a terrible thing to do. But I mean, there's a law, like involuntary sterilization happens a lot in the world, not just in the movies to Black Widows.
When that scene started and he made that comment, I thought it was going to go in a different direction, because that is just the most infantile, classic male line.
She responds so well.
Unfortunately, I've said that. Fortunately, it's been a long time, but I heard that, and that's just when he said that, I thought, oh my God, here we are in 2021, and we're gonna have to listen to that same line. And then it went in a different direction. But when he first said that, I just thought, oh my God, here we go again. Is it your time? A little sensitive. So
yeah, smart dudes don't ask.
Yeah. So I had a couple of cookies I wanted to share, and they were around music. The first one was in the opening sort of scenes and credits. They show the capture of various and kidnapping of various girls from their mothers to take them to the Red Room and make them Black Widows.
Oh, and the horrible training montage.
Right. And it was done to Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Great cover of it.
Yeah, and a great cover. And it really worked. The second was going back 20 years back from that was American Pie. And anytime I can hear American Pie, I'm going to sing along. And so whether it's in a bar or on a movie, I thought those were particularly cool. I've mentioned the pose, and then the other one was a very minor character who was the supplier. He was Nick Mason.
Great.
And and he could get anything given enough time. And I would love to see him pop up again in the MCU somewhere, because he was British, so he had that kind of British wit, and or at least he was speaking with an English accent. So I thought that was very cool. So
his relationship with Natasha was great too, because plainly they've known each other for a long time. They've worked together for a long time, and it's nice to see her having friends and relationships outside of just the Avengers.
Yes, excellent point. So, Megan, unfortunately, we were near the end of our time for this episode, but I hope our listeners will join us again for our next episode of Popcorn and Compliance, the MCU series.
Thank you for joining me again today, Tom. This is a lot of fun. And for everyone watching, next time we are going to be back to talk about Black Panther.
Hope you've enjoyed this episode of Popcorn and Compliance, the Marvel Cinematic Universe series. And I hope you will join Megan and I for our next episode where we take up Black Panther.